Welcome to Live Into Your Best Life, a show where people learn how to go from where they are to where they'd like to be in any area of life. If you're looking for a new job, wanting to improve your relationships, or even reclaim your health, Paulie Skaja will share with you a simple formula that can take you on a journey to begin to live into your best life in all areas of life. Now sit back and begin your journey.
Hi there, and welcome to Live Into Your Best Life. I'm Paulie Skaja, and I'm here today with Sheri Cutter. Welcome, Sheri, and thank you for joining me.
I'm delighted.
I'm excited. So I'm going to share a little bit about you with the group, and then we'll just get into conversation.
Sounds great.
Awesome. So Sheri Cutter is an extraordinary facilitator of personal development and mind-body education with over 20 years of experience in the healing arts. As a master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming, she travels the country teaching NLP, hypnosis, and coaching while having an active practice both in person and virtually. Sheri holds a master's degree in physical therapy from Boston University and has worked in healthcare, dedicated to healing and holistic well-being for most of her life. Sheri is a certified Yoga Nidra instructor, a certified Franklin Method educator, and a certified Pilates instructor and trainer. Delving into the intricacies of mind-body connection, Sheri brings her expertise and seamlessly incorporates her extensive knowledge of body and mind to her clients to foster their physical and emotional needs, helping guide them on their journey wherever it may take them. So, a lot of really fancy and well put together words to say Sheri's just amazing. And I actually had the opportunity a couple of years ago. I took a class from her when she was in Minnesota. Absolutely love Sheri's style. You're real. People connect with you and you have real world experience. It's fun because you practice what you teach, and not everybody does that. A lot of people like to talk about the theory, but you continue to take classes, you continue to grow, you continue to improve. And one of the things I really appreciate about your style is that when you're in class, you learn from the students as well. And then you bring that to life. And I know you use some of our experiences in future classes too, because you learned some of your previous experience in our class. So it's just been really fun to get to know you. And I later on will have people, you'll give them information to connect with you and stuff. But I just want to take a peek. You've got some amazing background. And I'm curious because just reading those words, it tells me you're a person who has been working towards living into your best life for a long time. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us a little bit about what does live into your best life mean for you?
Okay. Oh, it's just funny. I'm just smiling as I'm listening to the words said about me, which obviously I know them, but it's different hearing them. And also just that question of living into your best life, because I feel like I don't think I'm alone in this. My whole life has been about finding a balance. Okay. And it's funny, the reason I was smiling was my physical therapy practice here is called Imbalance Physical Therapy and Imbalance Pilates. And then I started Imbalance Coaching. I'm working on rebranding that so that coaching has, and the NLP work that I do and hypnosis has a different, but I find it interesting that living into my best life, I took this Yoga Nidra training and the instructor to it said, she had nothing to do with me, but she just said, I don't like the word balance. And it perked my interest. I was thinking, what is it about balance? And she had some whole long explanation, and her word that she preferred was harmony. And that was for herself, how words are. One of the things I love about neuro-linguistic programming is how words really create our reality. But I thought it was interesting. So when I think about living into my best life, it is for me this consistent yearning and learning to just, and I guess balance, what balance means for me is the congruency and alignment within myself. So to me, I've thought about it, that's what balance is. And so I think living into my best life is the balance. We all have incredibly busy lives. I just got back from 10 days teaching, practitioner of NLP, and I ran a mastermind. And you're right, I learned so much from the people around me. So should I say what NLP is or
Yeah, whatever you want to share.
just because neuro-linguistic programming has to do with the mind and language. Programming, people are always like, oh no, I don't want to be programmed. It's not that it's programming is our internal subconscious programs that run us that we're not aware of. What NLP has brought for me, I think more than anything else that I've done in my life, and I've done a lot of different courses and just life in general, but it's brought me that balance that I've been seeking. And I think a lot of it is through the language of just realizing that we all present with our own model of the world. Like I have mine, you have yours. And until I really learned NLP, it was, wait, why don't they see things like I do? Like what those little conflicts that you have. And NLP has allowed me to take everything into a container, everything I've learned, but it's helped me find that balance, helped me find that alignment within myself. And that's, I have a family and I have a practice and I have people all the time, whether they're working for me, working with me, I'm teaching them, colleagues, the whole thing. So for me, it's just being able to feel that congruency inside. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love that kind of view, because a lot of people, when they think of the phrase live into your best life, they think about, oh, I need to be a millionaire, or I need this huge house, or I need this fancy car, and really it's something different for everybody. And it's personal. You have to feel it. Mm-hmm. And you have to be really clear on what it is that you want. Mm-hmm. And then I always tell people it's okay to change your mind. And I'm gonna let you talk about what are some times where you've found yourself going down a path and then you've pivoted because you've realized, you know what, it's okay for me to change my mind and go in a different direction. And how has that unfolded, that journey for you?
Yeah, a couple of things came to mind. The first thing that came to mind, working backwards, but then a big thing came to mind, but more recently is during COVID, and I had a big physical therapy practice, and just with everything that had happened I had a lot of employees and they had little kids at home and they had to not work, and just the amount of shifting that had to happen. But I made the decision during COVID to stop taking insurance, because physical therapy, even though the physical therapy I do is, they call it alternative, more hands-on. You put your hands on people, it's alternative, but it's craniosacral work and myofascial release, which is working from the inside out, which is how I like to do things anyway. I made the decision during COVID to just a big reset. So I let everybody go that was working for me because it was just too haphazard. It wasn't working. And then I let insurance go. And when you do that as a physical therapist, oh my gosh, people don't understand. And I get that. I've always wanted to serve people with insurance because it allowed people to come that wouldn't normally be able to come. However, between the cut, I don't know, I'm in California, with the cuts that insurance companies are making, we're not getting paid, and that I didn't have help, and the amount of paperwork, and I just nixed it. And that was a big step. And so I do see people, but it's on a cash basis and not insurance. But boy, the blowback from that was fairly huge. And people's perception of that, oh, well, I hope you make the big bucks. They have no idea. They have no idea that I just had to do it for peace of mind, and because I couldn't function in the old way. So that was one way where I just had to, and NLP did help with that. I had already at this point started, of course, teaching and having NLP. So I had all that. And when I teach too, I talk about all the decisions that we've made in our lives that have led us to where we are now. And in 2012, I left a practice with a business partner. She had been a dear friend. She was the reason I moved here. I live in the foothills of Northern California, Nevada City, but it's in California. And she and I had worked together in Santa Cruz before I went to physical therapy school, and it was wonderful. And so she was moving up here. I came up to build a practice with her. So for 18 years, we had a practice, and then it was time for me to go. And I just, for many reasons, I needed to shift out of that, out of the partnership, out of how we were doing things, due to a lot of reasons on both sides. But I'll tell you, it was the divorce. It was a huge divorce. And I live in a small town. So it's been 12 years. I still hear about it, right? But it was a big decision for me to be able to find that sort of truth inside myself, because I do tend to be a person that kinds of slogs through and sees the good and that kind of thing. So I don't know if that's what you were asking, but those are just a couple places where I really had to make some big decisions that impacted me, but impacted a lot of other people too.
Well, and what you mentioned, these were two examples of how you demonstrated aligning so that you were congruent, right? And they were perfect examples of how we can actually make a choice. We can go down a road. Things can be great until they're not.
Until they're not.
And then when they're not, if you continue to try to force it, I don't know if you've ever tried to run in the water, but right? That's how it feels. It's like when you're going in the wrong direction, it's and that's an opportunity to pause and to consider what's out of alignment, what's out of congruence, and what's next.
And I think it's important. And I think so much of what I teach, and I wasn't teaching in 2012, but it's a way I've always lived, is getting back in touch with that inner voice. Not that inner voice, not the critical one that's running a marathon in our heads, but more the heart one, that inner voice that we just push aside for all the logic and for all that. So I really have always touched into that, but life gets complicated. Sometimes it's easier to stay with the status quo and just keep doing what you're doing and just stay in, because that's the uncomfortable comfortable, right? So yeah, but I think it's so much of what I teach now to people is when your anxiety is a message from the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, that something's out of alignment. So when you're feeling that something's not right, it is right. And find the tools and find the trust to listen to it and just take action. Even if you don't know exactly where you're going, take the action to remove yourself from things that aren't serving you. I mean, I did it at home too. I did it separated from my husband, who we've been married. I've known him since I was 22. It's been a long time. And we took a break, and that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah. And sometimes when you hit pause, it can be like a reset, right? And so when you left the practice 12 years ago, you didn't abandon that wellness. You just shifted it to the next level for yours. And just like your relationship, you hit pause so that you could get yourself aligned and you could refocus, reset.
Right.
And figure out, where do I want to go from here? So sometimes, because I know when people think of changing direction or pausing or pivoting or whatever, they feel like we'll have to let everything go. And then they think, oh, then did I make all these mistakes? Did I make poor choices? And it doesn't mean that at all. Right. It just means that we're in a different place.
Right.
By the end of our conversation, you and I will be in a different place. We will have learned and grown. And everybody who listens to this will be in a different place from when they started.
I think what you just said is so important. Like when you get to that point and make the change, move forward. Because if you spend your time kicking yourself or berating yourself or putting your energy away, right? Putting your energy on, oh, I should have done this sooner. I wish I would. We all have those moments.
Like the what ifs, right? The what ifs. What if
I? Yeah. But to just to not put the energy there, but to do it on your intention of where you want to go. You may not know exactly where you're going, but if you have an intention, that's the
exactly. In one of my earlier podcasts, I talk about when you're going on vacation, Okay, so I live in Minnesota. Sheri lives in California. When I'm going on vacation, I could say, I'm going to go west. But if I don't have the intention that I'm going to go to Northern California, I may never wind up at Sheri's place.
That's true. Yep.
I could go west and I could wind up in South Dakota. And while there's some fun things to do there, it's not
Northern
Sheri's.
California. No, it's not Northern.
So I think that's perfect. All right. So a little bit ago, when you were talking about your story and how you live into your best life, and you were talking about the NLP and the programming piece, something that came up for me just popped into my mind. So I want to share this and then see what your perspective is on how this has supported you. So as brand new little people, we're sponges and we're blank slates and we're in the imprinting years where everything that comes in gets imprinted. And then we start to, about 6, 7, we start to move into those modeling years where we're taking on the practices of the people we see. And then we start, I'm going to behave like that. I don't like the repercussions. Maybe I need to shift. And you start to look for those models to start to follow those behaviors. And then we move into about the age of 14, 15, those relationship years. And everything that we've gone through before is formulating how we live into our relationships and then moving forward and all the dynamics. And so now that people are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s, whatever, everything still goes back to those initial, I'm going to call it programmings that were imprinted and modeled and all the things into us at a very young age where we really knew. Now, when you work with people or when you consider the reflection on your life, what have you learned about some of those formative years that you would say to people to help them become aware of the programming so that they can then reprogram, unprogram, shift?
It seems to be one of the biggest opportunities for people is how do you change your own trajectory, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're born into a certain way of life and we have something called future memories that, of course, we're always bringing our past into our present and our future. So that's what's in us. So the idea is that we can change the trajectory of our lives by learning. There's all sorts of ways out there, right? All sorts of personal development. NLP is just the one that really worked well for me in the subconscious mind. And I think that, of course, we work with the buzzwords these days, limiting beliefs and all the things. And it's so hard sometimes to talk about all this because it's so all over the place, or that's my model of the world. There's a lot of people that don't see this all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. But there's things that we've buried that do come up as we're getting older. And I think that's why people are coming to class, is because no longer can they shove down those programmings that happened when we were young. We talk about identity. We talk about something called layers of the mind and identity. I am and I am not, those words, things that follow that. They're the deepest things into our subconscious. So if you're a small child, and I used to get in trouble a lot. If I got in trouble and someone yelled at me, you're a liar, you're terrible, you're a bad person, that goes into identity level. And that's what's happened. And I had a very nice childhood. So I didn't have a lot of that, but so many did not have a lovely childhood, right? So how do you get that fortitude to make the changes and build the strength and the ability to change out of that? Of course, we have processes within neuro-linguistic programming that I think are very powerful. People go to therapy for this. Now with therapy, you're working a lot on the conscious mind, so it's a lot of dialogue and that can work. But I think I heard Bruce Lipton say, if you want to affect change in the body or the mind or anything, you have to affect the subconscious mind. And that's what took me into this rabbit hole. I had not studied hypnosis, but when you do, you can release patterns that have been holding you back really quite easily. It's amazing when you realize the thoughts that what people have said to us, we've turned into thoughts. We've made those beliefs, right? And you can shift out of that. I do believe you have to learn ways of doing that. I don't know if it comes naturally to people, right?
It takes practice.
It takes practice. My life, I attribute the fact So I had a good childhood, and I do strongly believe that people who had that 0 to 7 good, I think it makes a really big difference. And I haven't done any studies on this, but my father died when I was 12, and my mom, she was devastated, and she went out of commission and just was very absent for all my teenage years, which was growing up. And I went to Beverly Hills High. It was crazy times at Beverly Hills High, and it was a lot of rebellion, a lot of fun, but a lot of trouble there because I just didn't care. I just, some of the worst things that could have happened when you're a kid happens, but I came out of it. And many of the people from my high school didn't come out of it, stayed on the trajectory that was not healthy. But I, like 18 or 19, just shifted. And people have asked me why, and I don't know exactly, but I do attribute it to the fact that I had a very supportive, strong, positive reinforcement when I was young. I don't know. There's a million reasons probably why I shifted and some don't, but I do believe that those, if you're a parent and with your kids, like sometimes kids are not their behaviors. They'll do something, but that's not who they are. And when you turn it into who they are, it goes pretty deep. Does that make sense? Was that
totally makes sense? Totally makes sense. And I think what you just talked about on a couple of other interviews, we've talked about how, why is it that some people can be raised in a certain way and they stay stuck in that way and they complain about it, but they don't do anything. They take no action to change anything. It's like they just want to complain. And then other people, there's a moment in time, and I had this happen. My daughter was about 7, 8 years old, and all of a sudden I realized in a moment I was treating her the way I'd been treated. And that was the moment in time that I vowed and people say, I'm not going to become my mom. And when I had that realization of I was treating my daughter the way I'd been treated, I made the choice to change. And not perfect. I'm a work in progress. My kids will tell you that. But I also know that my kids love who I am and choose to be with me, which is really cool. My aunt made a comment once that all we can do is hope that our children do better than we did. And I think that's what it is. Okay, so how can I improve and what action do I want to take? And then move forward. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's 90% awareness. Once we become aware of how we are, then we can take the action, but you have to become aware. In NLP, we talk about cause and effect. Basically, it's that taking responsibility for yourself. But I'll tell you, I teach this, and then I use it with like people in my office, and I'll ask people, so how are you at cause for this? That's what? Because what cause means is that you're looking at your part, what you may have contributed to the situation, right? How am I bringing something to the table in this instead of just blaming, which is living at effect of your boss, your spouse, your children, your parents. But what we hear when we talk to people is people living in effect, blaming. So if you just can get people to, they don't have to be a cause or take, it's not all. And it's not fault. There's a difference between blame and fault and just looking inside to say, all right, what could I have done or what have I done to bring this? What could I have done differently? When you do that, I will tell you, it's probably one of the most powerful NLP tools I've learned is having people just take the pause. I am a big one in the pause. The wisdom that comes in between, right? Stimulus and response is so important when you allow yourself. But I think that, like you said, when you become aware that you're doing, acting a certain way, then you have to take the action to change. But that's where people get stuck. They don't know how to take the action. Right. You do, of course. But does that make sense?
Totally. And when you take a pause, I tell people, take a breath, physically take a breath and get back into your body and ground. And some people are like, what does that mean? I'm like, yes, just do it. Just take a breath. And then they'll do this little half shallow. And I'm like, okay, try again. And then they'll do that. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm like, And it's so funny because I do corporate coaching and I work with some amazing clients. And I teach people how to breathe all the time.
Yeah.
And when I'm done working with my teams, years later, I'll still have people reach out to me and say, when I get into these moments, I hear you in my head, just breathe. We'll get through this, just breathe. And that breath helps reset. And like you said, it brings these ideas to the forefront because you're no longer in that fight or flight, but you've hit pause so that you can actually take action instead of reaction, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned something about cause and effect. And I will tell you, there are some people who have studied NLP who say, how are you at cause? Yeah. And it's so funny because I can know, and then I will ask the same question. And the response that I got was, it's not my problem. And
you can only do you as right. So
right?
and you have to be careful how you ask it. Like you have to have rapport, and you can't make it seem like the other person's at fault. But the biggest thing for me about cause and effect is that the only thing that we can really 100% control is our response to the things that happen in our life, right? You don't want to put blame on people, but I think it's important to ask yourself too, like, how am I at cause? What did I do to help create this situation? But really all we can be at cause for is how we respond to the experiences in our life. But yeah, you can't do anything about anybody else. And like everything else, if people like know a little bit or don't, it doesn't come off as great as, but yeah. And with cause and effect, I've had people say, there's horrible things in the world. How can I be at cause for that? And I don't think you are. That's what I'm saying. But you can be at cause for
your response.
I wanted to say one thing about breathing, if I can.
Go for it.
Is the only autonomic. So we have the autonomic nervous system, our heart rate, our breathing is part of that, our blood flow, right? All those things are autonomic, meaning automatic, but it's called the autonomic nervous system. Breathing is the one thing in the autonomic nervous system that we can control. And that's why I think breath work now has become so popular and so used, because we can decompress the vagus nerve, which causes anxiety, goes down to the viscera, causes anxiety. Like we can control our breathing with these different techniques. I just wanted to add that because it's so important to know that.
Yeah,
that we
it
can affect our whole autonomic and parasympathetic nervous system, which is the peaceful one, by our breathing. So,
that's huge. That's huge. Okay, so you just caused another thought to come to mind. And when I was a kid, long, long ago, right, things were very different. Now we have all these labels, and it's almost like people carry certain ideas around like a badge. And one of the words you just brought up was anxiety, and how we can actually breathe and do activities. There, you're back.
Okay, yes.
So we can actually take action to decompress and release that anxiety. And I have found an interesting pattern happening with some of the folks that are younger than me. I want to be at peace, be balanced, be in congruence, and move forward. All the things we've been talking about. And I find some people who are holding on to some of these things like it's a badge. And then you have to ask yourself, like, what are they getting out of this for themselves? What are they like? Why would you want to hang on to that? But there's a reason, and we can't. It's not about us figuring it out for them. Have you had experiences in that realm?
Yeah, I'm first exposed to that very much in physical therapy, because what it is, or my take on your question, is the secondary gains or the emotional benefits. And it happened very much in do you know what that is? It's when you're getting more benefit from holding like a chair, holding the problem than letting it go. And can I give you an example? Because this very recently happened. I had a woman refer to me for hypnosis from a local therapist in town. And she didn't want to say too much. And I don't want to know too much before I see someone. But she had developed this very like unusual fear of being alone a couple of years. It's been like 2 years. She's been in therapy. She saw a psychiatrist in town. I know all the things. And she came to see me. We had a couple of phone conversations and seemed like very much like she just was so miserable with how she was, right? So she was ready to let go and do it. So she comes in, she has her daughter with her, which is fine. This is an older woman. Her daughter's, maybe 40 something. And I just got the story more. And the story was that her daughter and family and her son and family have all moved up here. They live like right nearby. It's like this compound. And I just said before I started, I said, listen, from meeting your daughter, I know she loves you. Because this lady wanted to go to pickleball, but she was afraid because it was during the time they all scheduled dinners. So there'd be 2 dinners, all week long, they're together. She was getting so much. And I said something about it. I said, your family will still be there for you when you let go of this fear of being alone. And her daughter jumped in and said, Mom, I love you. I will not abandon you. So that came up. But then when she got on my table to do our session, the picture on my wall, even though her eyes were going to be closed, she asked me to take it off the wall. The music was annoying. The door there was so much control. It was like, okay. But what really came up for me was that she was getting so much emotional benefit from hanging on to this fear that I think there had to be, I talked to her daughter about it after, there had to be such proof from her family that they would be around even if she went to play pickleball. Or do you know what I'm saying? So the answer to that question for me, and physical therapy, I had it all the time. People would come in and they would say, oh, I just had an MRI and there's nothing wrong. And I'm like, did you just hear your words? This is something to be happy about. But because it didn't show up to show insurance, it affected, that's part of the system, but it affected them negatively. One of the answers to why we hold on to it, which a badge, is it gives us significance. We have a story to tell. In NLP, we learn, stay out of the story, let people tell their story, but you're looking for structure. You're looking for the things that you can work on, limiting decisions, negative emotions, unnecessary connections, conflicts, the deeper issues. You're listening to story because that's what people will tell you, but everyone has a story. And the more people tell the story, the more they're living the story. That's important too. But yeah, for me, it's a lot of keeping the significance going that they get and also the emotional benefits that they're receiving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I've got someone in my life who has made progress using various tactics. And then there's this need to have attention from someone. And so they'll play small to get that, oh, but you're so right? You're so wonderful. You're such a great person. You're all these things.
Right.
So it's that if I play small, then I will get positive reinforcement and hear the things. And then you think, but what if you're amazing and you play big and you shine? How many more people will see you and reinforce that? Or you're sick, you go to the doctor, and then, oh, everybody takes care of you. So that kind of sets that tone of,
meals,
if I'm sick,
I get brides. Yes.
Exactly. And that's where I feel, and this is how I try to live, is when you start to pay attention to some of these behaviors, what is it that I need to change? Because people are going to love me anyways. Yeah. I don't need to have them taking care of me. In fact, I like to take care of other people and show my love to them, which means I need to be strong and healthy.
Yeah, you do. And I think that shining our light actually allows people to shine brighter rather than the opposite. But I just taught practitioner and we talk about this, that people dim their light because you think it makes other people feel better. But actually it's shining your own light allows other people to mirror that back and shine their light. It doesn't mean being over egoed or whatever. I don't work with the word ego that much, but it's just shining and being really concise and consistent about who you are and then letting other people just mirror themselves back to you.
And I think
I was just gonna say, like, how do you help people who are so stuck with that badges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to an awareness. And so now when people listen to this conversation, they're going to start thinking about these things.
Right.
Then they're going to have an awareness. Then they're going to get to make a choice.
Yeah.
What do I want to do with this? Do I want to keep the secondary gain, or do I want to get the support?
Find ways to empower myself back. Because when you're doing all these things, like putting the cause outside of yourself and getting those emotional gains of secondary benefits, you're really giving your power away. And people don't know that. People don't know what it feels like to give power away and then bringing it back into yourself. It just feeds that inner self so strongly. And yeah, like for people to just begin to listen to their language, listen to how they're describing themselves with the I am and the I am not, listen to how other people are, I am not, and just start becoming aware of language that people are using and how the responsibility is being put on others.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Great call out. So with that, I would like you to share your brilliance and how people can get a hold of you and what do you do?
Sure. So what do I do? I feel like someone just called about coaching. They're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I know I need to get my elevator pitch down a little bit better. So there's a couple ways to reach me. I'm redoing my website right now, but I do have a website for it's imbalancewellness.net. I don't know if you can, imbalancewellness.net. And that'll give you information about me with the coaching and the hypnosis and NLP. And the phone number I'll give you too. I know I was supposed to send you this and I didn't, but 530-470-0410. And I'll get them. That's my office. I still have an office. Still got brick and mortar, but
with like a real phone.
To put my hands on anyway. And I have moved away some from, I have done business coaching and accountability coaching, but I just have such a love of the deeper work. So if people do need accountability and that kind of thing, that's fine. But I definitely use NLP techniques and processes, which I can certainly explain another time, and hypnosis. So many people are coming to me for hypnosis. I think hypnosis is becoming more mainstream. People are less scared. All hypnosis is a deep relaxation where your subconscious mind is just open to hearing things that might help change. You're protected. The subconscious mind doesn't let you do anything you don't want to do, but it's a very powerful tool for eliminating some of those charges that are holding you back. So I offer session work and I offer packages and things like that, but I really do doing the deeper work. So I don't do so much accountability coaching, which means every week we talk and do an action plan. I can use that. I can do some, but that's not where my biggest heart is. So,
yeah. And I can be a testimonial for you because I actually worked with Sheri and we did some amazing, it was several hours of peeling back my layers.
There's the breakthrough session. They're long. You pick an area of life and all your areas of life feed into each other. However, you pick the one that's going to move the needle the most, and we very focused on that area and all the ways of changing value, looking at values and looking at beliefs and looking at how you're acting, behave, everything, all the areas of life for that one thing. Yeah.
And it was wonderful. And just the shifts that happened were fantastic. And again, I'm in Minnesota. She's in California. So I can attest to the fact that remotely works great.
It does. I was skeptical at the beginning because I've been all hands-on, brick and mortar, but Zoom has allowed me to reach such a big audience. So I actually love it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, thank you. And I appreciate you being here today. And I think I heard a little indicator that perhaps sometime in the future, you're going to be back.
I think I am going to be back. I'm just trying to remember when that was.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I'm coming back for. I thought you were talking about class, but I am coming back for that.
Oh, so. No, I'm back on my show. So we've got several reconnections.
I thought you meant Minnesota. And I was like, but I did say I was coming back to Minnesota for something special.
That's right. That's right.
Love to be on your show.
About 7 months.
I'd love
Speaking
to be
of,
on your show. It's fun. I love speaking about it. You know me. I want to get the word out, and I want people to just live their best lives. It's such a value for me.
indeed. And so I think I saw tomorrow's your birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Very cool. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I was going to say, did you see all those Vizsla puppies on Facebook? You should. I'm not getting one for my birthday. My husband's worried. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for having me. I love you. And
love you too, dear. Thank you so much. So hang on for a second. So listeners, I hope that you enjoyed this session, and I hope that you took away some really amazing nuggets. Sheri's information is going to be in the show notes, so check it out. Click on her link, call her, schedule some time, and let her help you peel back those layers so that you can start living into your best life as well. She'll help you on the journey, and it's a journey step by step. There is no one right direction. It's all about figuring it out as you go. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like it. Please give us a 5-star rating. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to the show so that you catch every week. Every Wednesday, a new show is released. And until next time, I'm Paulie Skaja, helping you live into your best life. Enjoy the journey.
Thank you for listening to Paulie Skaja, your show host for Live Into Your Best Life. Check out the show notes and visit her at paulieskaya.com to learn more and continue your journey. Until next week, enjoy the adventure.